You are now tuned in to the Cosmic Convos podcast, your number one source for accurate, relevant, and thought-provoking astrological conversations in the podcast nation, the place where stars and minds align.
Peace, you're now tuned into the Cosmic Convos podcast. I'm your humble host, Harut, and we got the good brother here, Brother Ra. How you doing?
Oh, brother, enjoying life, enjoying it to the point where I'm loving every opportunity I can to wake up, brother, and see another day. How about yourself?
Same here, man. You know, just building, man. You know, staying busy. You know, stay creating, and just trying to take it to the next level.
Indeed.
Yeah, but before we get too far, I want to remind you all that this episode is brought to you by Push It Forward Media Group and Caliprucia Astrology and our good people over on Patreon. Like always, thank you very much for all the love you show. And, you know, if you want to get with us on Patreon, you know, go to our Instagram, and the link is in the profile right there. So we're at Cosmic Convo on Instagram. Make sure you follow us, and then the link to the Patreon is right there in our profile. Brother Rob, how can the people get with you in Caliprucia Astrology?
It's three simple, real easy steps. One, you can either hit me up on calipruciaastrology@gmail.com, or two, you can hit me up on Facebook via Shechem Ra, or three, you can hit me up on IG via Shechem Ra. So those would definitely be the main three avenues to get a hold of me.
Indeed, and you can get at me at Push It Forward, you know, at Push It Forward on Instagram. That's PUSHITFWD on Instagram. You can also find me on the web, pushitforward.com. Same spelling as the Instagram handle, and you can go check me out at Ninth Lord Films. That's 9. Actually, follow me on Ninth Lord Films on Instagram, and the website is ninethlord.com. I was surprised I got that. It's 9thlord.com. There you can find the new short film we just dropped, The Long Way. Definitely interesting, you know, take, especially given the times that we're in right now. That's the first one, but we definitely got more to come. All right. So yeah. Boom. So yeah, man, we finally back, you know, for you know, episode 12. Last week we we got a little tied up, you know, just couldn't mend or whatnot last week as far as everything that we had going on and stuff like that. So we apologize for being MIA, but you know, we're gonna definitely make up for that. All right. So yeah, we don't got any questions from the Patreons this week, but you know, I think what we're talking about today, I think is very relevant with what's going on right now. I mean, you know, last year and this year we talking about, you know, some key transits, key eclipse, and you know what type of things we're going to be looking at, and you know, with an exception of maybe a few, you know, minor details. I mean, we're pretty much on point as far as what kind of world we'll be looking at going forward in these next few years based on what's happening in the skies. And you know, right now it's a lot of, you know, big call for, you know, reform, and a lot of call for leadership, you know. And this man that we we're talking about right now is often, you know, a topic of discussion because, you know, a lot of what he was talking about and a lot of the issues that we have right now, you know, he was saying this, you know, decades ago and whatnot. So, you know, Brother Ra, I guess you can go ahead and, you know, grab it from here in regards to the great brother that we're going to talk about today.
Indeed, yeah, it's very relevant considering all that was said and done during his lifetime, the sacrifices that were made, and the ultimate consequence of those sacrifices, which was his life. And that individual is Malcolm X. So, you know, it befits to really explore his chart astrologically speaking, because there's just so many imports to show the genius, the intelligence, and literally the bravery that was behind this man.
Indeed.
You know, a lot of times people aren't appreciated until they're gone, and we had much love for him then, but all of our great leaders are really idolized and immortalized once they pay a great price, which is usually, unfortunately, their life. So, you know, you don't miss a good thing until it's gone, they say, and sometimes it's just true. But brother was definitely a genius by far. When I say genius, not in the sense of what we consider mathematics, but in the sense of articulation and the ability to convey a message across to people in a very heartfelt but very matter-of-fact way. And so, you know, the riots that are happening right now, not let me say the riots, but the protests, right? Because there really aren't any riots.
Yeah.
But protests and the outrage and the frustration behind the loss of black lives over, you know, countless number of years, you know, has culminated into a shift of consciousness to try to see if we can alter how we're doing things this moment going forward. Well, if he were alive, I'm sure Malcolm would probably be, I would say, ecstatic in one regard, but also very disappointed in another, considering that we would have to even come to a point like this to have it to be noticed worldwide.
Yeah.
But Malcolm was born May 19th, 1925 in Omaha, Nebraska. His time of birth I have is 10:25 p.m. And that date, time, and place places him as a Sagittarius ascendant with and just that alone, folks, speaks volumes, right? Sagittarius is the preacher. Sagittarius is the religious man. Sagittarius is the guru, the guide. It's the one that points us to the moon, right? Even though we may not hit the moon, we might be amongst the stars. Right? So, right, shooting for great heights, right? Great ambitions, great visions. That's all Sagittarius, right? And so by far, you know, Malcolm X is an exemplary example of those types of attributes in an individual. But you know, the chart should always reveal everything from birth until death, right? The chart should reveal that from top to bottom. You shouldn't be looking to fit, squeeze, cut and paste, copy and quote, right, to make it work, right? We don't have to do that. We just read the chart. And so the chart reads very perfectly in that his ascendant is Sagittarius and his ascendant degree is 12 degrees, 12 minutes, which puts him right at Mula, right, which is a very powerful nakshatra. In fact, it's a nakshatra that's aligned directly with the black hole of our galaxy, right, the center of our galaxy. In fact, most people don't know, just so you know, why this has happened. One of the trigger points that has happened, it wasn't an eclipse, right? That's not what triggered this. what triggered this is that Rahu, I think within days, I believe 2 to 3 days of Mr. Floyd's passing or Mr. Floyd's unfortunate demise, Rahu passed directly over 6 degrees 40 minutes. 6 degrees 40 minutes Gemini and 6 degrees 40 minutes Sagittarius, which is the exact galactic alignment for the center of our galaxy. So when that point hit, days after, literally, I'm going to say even a day or two. Go check it for, folks, go check it for yourself, right? That nodal point triggered over, and this happens every 19 years, right? So this nodal point triggered over that point, and boom, here you have it, right? So, right, Malcolm's ascendant is at 12 degrees Sagittarius, right? So it's 6 degrees away from that point. So this is a very intense nakshatra. This is a very intense part of Sagittarius. This is an intense person. They have an intense life, right? They don't have a run-of-the-mill life. Most Mula-borns don't typically have that. When I say Mula-born, I'm meaning the ascendant degree. Because the ascendant and the ascendant degree tells and unfolds the kind of context of the person's life and what to expect, right? So Malcolm grew up very hard, right? The sublord of Mula, right, is Ketu. And Ketu is in the second house of Capricorn. Not a sign that Ketu particularly vibrates at a very high intensity, and because it's an earthbound sign, and Ketu is one of the most spiritual planets in the zodiac. And so it calls forth that this individual during their early childhood, because Ketu's in the second house is childhood, this shows that a person has a very rough early life, right? They're very much feeling or felt unloved, uncared for, unconcerned about, unrequited love. There wasn't a return, or there was very much just a detachment in childhood. There was no glue, no bonding, right? And so this creates individuals many times, unless there's benefics or things that can offset that particular placement, it can create individuals that can be very detached from how they deal with other people. Right? And Malcolm was very much so that for a while. You have to be that in order to have some criminal element, because when Ketu's in the second, Rahu goes to the eighth, and many times, and not all the times, many times, that can create a criminal type of mind, right? Meaning you just don't go with the flow. It's more of a rebellious type nature, not always criminal, but rebellious to the point where law can be disregarded. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then people say, how do you know that? Like, what do you mean? Right? Look, the second house is your values, folks. Okay? So when you grow up and you have Ketu in the second house, the value system is compromised. The value system is not there. Right? And the eighth house sensibilities are now turned on, which have a lot to do with underhanded, backdoor, sidebar thinking. Right? So, again, doesn't always mean this, because benefics, the lords of those particular houses, aspects, all those things can change the dynamic of the flow. But for the most part, when you see Ketu in the second house, you can pretty much bet your bottom dollar that the childhood was not run-of-the-mill, especially in the sense of family and values. Yeah. So this creates a different type of individual, one that can easily slide out of a value system and put themselves into a system whereby criminality is the rule of the day.
Yeah, and that's the dasha period he started off with.
Precisely. Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, showing, right? Same thing, right? Same process.
Confluence.
Right. The moon many times can show the childhood as well, and it's in Aries, right? Mother was definitely a fighter, right? Mother was definitely one that wouldn't acquiesce easily. Right? So again, showing a lot of those characteristics. Although Saturn, which is the second lord, also dealing with childhood, right, is exalted. Right?
Yep.
So the family, although didn't do well, was still had a very moralistic or responsible purview, even though they maybe have been overtaxed or maybe inadequate in certain areas. Right. I mean, in the movie and in the book, Mama said, Mama always said, don't eat no swine. Right. Right. So there was some value since there, even though they were poor. Right.
Yeah.
So, moving deeper into, his chart, one of the most important things you want to look for in a chart is a person, what we call Atma Karaka. And there's two Atma Karakas in a chart. Typically, of course, the sun, which is the Atma Karaka of where we dwell in this solar system. The sun is always the Atma Karaka in the sense of your soul, right, or the core of who you are. But there's another Atma Karaka. It's called a Chara Atma Karaka, and meaning that it's depending upon the degree of the planet in order to find out what planet represents your soul's development, right?
Yeah.
And so the Atma Karaka, which is a key planet in any chart, is the planet that has the highest degree, right? Now we'll exclude Rahu because he's a demon, right? And he's an invisible point, has no mass and no physical appearance. You only see him during eclipses, right? So since he has no real body, he can't be considered as a Karaka or one of the moving Karakas or Chara Karakas. So we don't include him. Some people do. I don't personally.
Yeah, I was about to ask about that because there's a couple, especially some Gemini astrologers use an 8 Karaka system.
No, I use 7. It makes sense. Because then if Ketu, Rahu represents disembodied beings, y'all. It's in disembodiment, meaning the story itself talks about Rahu's what? Disembodiment.
Yeah.
So it's a disembodied being. You can't marry a disembodied being. You can only marry physical matter. So the conjecture of it to add an 8th figure into the equation doesn't make sense because you can't marry a ghost. You can't marry a god. You can't marry something that's not there, right?
Yeah.
You can't marry psychic energy. You can't marry, right? And some might think you can, right? But you can't. It's impossible.
Yeah.
So we use the 7. Right, and so the 7 always leaves us with a very solid understanding of an individual's baseline life, especially when we talk about the Atma Karaka.
Yeah.
So the Atma Karaka is the planet that has the highest degree, and guess what? His Atma Karaka is Jupiter, the planet that rules Sagittarius. So he comes into this life full well knowing what he's supposed to do, even though it comes at a distraction. It comes through a distraction. It comes through challenge and obstacles. And why? Because it's at the 29th degree, and the 29th degree is considered old, right? It's considered almost dead, literally, meaning the power of it in certain, what we call avastas, or the way we measure a planet's state of existence. Mm-hmm. So when that person comes in, they come in with an old karmic debt. Right?
Yeah.
And guess what? Jupiter also represents gurus. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, that's deep.
So, right. So you come in, right, to learn to deal with gurus. You become a guru. So you learn that gurus have problems too. But we're going to talk about how we see that in the chart very shortly. So, and these are techniques I haven't mentioned before, folks. They've been around. I just incorporate different things, so different levels of listeners and people can kind of begin to incorporate different techniques and try to see different things as they go. Right.
Yeah.
So, the Atma Karaka being the highest, the planet in the highest degree, and it is considered dead, right? In the sense of what we call baladadi of Ashtra, or the ability to kind of have an effect, right? In the sense that it can change the course of reality to its benefit, right? When you're old, you have a very much, okay, let me put it to you like this. Do you remember in the book when they explained he knew that he was going to die, right? They said it in the book in a way. I don't know if you read Alex, the actual autobiography. But in the movie, he said it. He just didn't say it outright.
Yeah.
Right? That's when you accept fate, right? And do not... He had the option to change, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
He could have changed the whole time.
Yeah.
If you pay attention, he walked into it. Right? That means the Atma Karaka, the soul, is there to face some serious lessons along the lines of facing death. I mean, if you want to get brass tacks with it.
Yeah.
That one, I was like, whoa. I saw it's 20. Look, folks, the Jupiter is retrograde. Number one, retrograde means this past life stuff you're dealing with. You're looking back to the past to deal with a guru type issue.
Yeah.
Right? And then it becomes this Atma Karaka at 29 degrees, 39 minutes. That means 20 minutes difference, a slight difference, it would have been into the next sign in Capricorn. So it would have been debilitated, but it's not. It's not. And in fact, in the Navamsha chart, it's in the exact same position, means it's Vargadama. And Vargadama means it's even more powerful in the person's chart and an influence in their life.
Yeah, mine's just like that. Yeah, I can. That's
Right?
deep.
So when you look at that, this person's life significantly is centered around religion and dealing with issues from a past life teacher or a past life issue with regards to adhering to knowledge from a past life teacher. So now he comes, right? And he has his epiphanies and realizations. And this is how we know these things happen, folks, right? His chart is in Vimshatari Dasha, and I'm not going to get into Chara Dasha in the Jaimini system. I'll leave that alone. We'll do that maybe next season. We'll touch on some of those techniques. Mm-hmm. But they are awesome when you start to use them in the sense of understanding how timing works, because their system is different, but it's still nonetheless very effective. Vimshatari Dasha. Vimshatari Dasha system is the king of dashas. It literally is. Like, it is the master dasha system. There are other dashas, right? Many dashas, right, that you can use to time, and they all have very specific purposes, and they even have very specific reasons and rules why to use them. But like, for example, when you want to know about self-realization, or if you want to know about your spiritual development, you use what's called Drig Dasha, D-R-I-G Dasha, right? D-R-I-K. Some people say D-R-I-G, some people say D-R-I-K. Literally, it is D-R-I-K Dasha system. You can actually use that to time, because Drig means sight, right? And so it's a system that literally allows you to see when God will allow you to see into God's being itself. And so people that are meditate deeply, people that are in stigmata, different types of spiritual stuff that they really want to see if it's going to manifest, you can use that as a system. So there's many different systems to use to see different things, right? But Vimshatari is the king, because it literally sees the system from the perspective of the mind. The moon is the planet that is the orchestrated faculty of the Vimshatari Dasha system. And it works best, trust, right? But in the system, right, and he goes through a series of events, right, that really ties him into what happens. And so Jupiter is in the ascendant, right? But we also look to see if the person's mind appreciates or has the same affinity with Jupiter or knowledge that the person does in the ascendant, or the person does in the sense of what is perceived by themselves, in the sense of the world scene, the physical world. In other words, are they physically there in a religious sense, and are they mentally there? You could be physically there and be a villain all the while, right? If you ever wonder why, you can see Jupiter in the 5th house from some people. You can see Jupiter in the 5th house and 9th house in some people's chart, but look to the moon. Because wherever it is from the moon will also show you how they really deal with religion as well. So it's a hidden way we understand and look at it. So, right, Jupiter in 1, 4, 7, or 10 from the moon, or 5 or 9 from the moon, always produces a religious respect for spiritual traditions and teachings, right? And a respect from the heart, right? A respect from the emotional perspective, right? Awe. When you can be in awe, right? You can be connected to the divine source, right? Through your emotions and through your mind. Different from the from the first house, even though it still counts as the ascendant, but the moon is a telltale, right?
Yeah.
And so the moon is in the 5th from Jupiter, which places the Jupiter in the 9th from the moon. So that this individual adored religion, right? This person adored his guru at some point, right? Very easily see, right? So what happened, right? And the Dasha system reveals, right? So we won't talk about when he exits, right? We'll talk about, let's say, what leads up to the exit. And so he's in a moon Dasha prior to when he begins to have issues with Elijah, right? And so that moon Dasha begins in 1954, right? Now, I'm not too certain as to the exact dates of when he got involved, but I would pretty much bet you bottom dollar it would be near to or right around that time. In fact, I bet you all you gotta do, right, is see when he was released, right, from prison, right? And that release date was the date that he actually began to influence, or began to...
It's showing, like 1955, that he got recruited into the Nation of Islam.
And what year did his dashas begin? 1954.
Yeah.
And his moon dasha begins 1954. Now, I didn't research this before. I'm just talking off the cuff, y'all. Really honest. I haven't done, just looking at it and reading it, and that's what it shows. So, by far, right? Moon is the ruler of the 8th house, which is transformation, right? Transformation by way of the 5th house, which is research, right? And in prison is when he is in prison is when he found Elijah.
Actually, right? 1952. Still
very close to that. Still very close.
Yeah.
Very, very close. Within a year. Because his moon dasha begins in 54. And that would have begun in 52. So it still stands to show that in the moon dasha is when that picked up. Right? That's when it took off. It gives a couple years. You're not even get out and start, boss hogging. Be like running things. But in the 1954, I'm sure he was moving and grooving. Because here's the thing, right? Remember, what did he do in prison? What was the big thing that everybody kind of was fascinated about? What he copied the dictionary, right?
Yeah.
Well, look, moon is conjunct Mars.
Mercury.
Moon is conjunct Mercury in the 5th house.
Mm-hmm.
Man had a prodigious, right, vocabulary. Right? The man's vocabulary just don't even try it, right? Because it's gonna, next level stuff. That's fifth house. Fifth house and ninth house stuff is next level stuff, right? So, right, you can see clearly this is this man's life. Transformation, eighth lord, by way of fifth house matters, right? In context to being Jupiter, Jupiter being ninth from the moon, or the moon being fifth from Jupiter. So all of that context unfolded perfectly at that point in time. Right. Now, we always want to say, okay, well, all right, Ross, so then what about like the physical life? Like what about the things that happen in his life? Or the people in his life, rather? Well, his wife, right? Talk about his wife, right? We always look to Venus to find a wife, don't we? Right? Yeah. She's the Karaka of wife. We look for her. Well, what about the 7th house on it? Don't worry about that. Right? The Karaka for wife is where we want to look. Because the Karaka for wife is going to show the context of the wife as it purviews, or it is revealed through his life. And so, where is Venus? She's in the what? Sixth house. And his wife was a what? Nurse.
Yeah, she was. Yep.
Not only that, it's conjunct the sun, right? Which the sun in the sixth house makes natural healers. And so the wife being the Karaka, Venus being the Karaka of wife, and being in the second sign of nutrition and health, also was obviously a definite advocate for good health, good eating, good diet, right? So again, showing, right, this is this individual's wife by far. Now we can look at the 7th house and talk about that the wife was also very, in Sagittarius, as you know, you always get a wife that has a mouthpiece. It just comes with the territory, right? It's the counterbalance to the Sagittarian ability to expound on things and see the grand picture, while they get a wife that spot checks everything. Yeah. Right, so, right, and it's the counterbalance of the universe. You always get your equal in some regards. So, even if they're not completely your equal, they always have a good mirror to show you yourself. And so, that Mercury, right, being ruling the 7th house, is now also conjunct the moon in Aries, still further showing a good, strong indicator. In fact, Mercury is in Ashwini, and Ashwini are the grand physicians of the zodiac, also showing a wife that heals.
Yeah.
Right. The 12th lord of hospitals, right, ashrams, jails, is in the 7th house by way of Mars, also showing medical field. So again, confluence, every which way you want to look, right? 7th from the moon is Saturn exalted. His wife was no joke, y'all. I mean, literally, she was a very powerful sister. So you can look at it from many different ways. This man, right? Hey, let's talk about. We talked about the Atma Karaka, right? Let's talk about the Dara Karaka, right? The Dara Karaka is the planet that has the lowest degree. And which planet has the lowest degree in his chart? The sun.
Sun, yeah.
Right? At 5 degrees, 55 minutes. In what house?
6.
Of medicine and health and healing. Also showing a wife in health. So, right, again, it's everywhere, folks. This man's chart is lined up perfectly. So, continuing on, right, I like to just show things like that to show the person's life, and you can see how the person's destiny is written, right? Because he didn't know he was going to meet his wife and do all those things and have all those, right? This is, people say, but you have a free will. Well, to a degree. But nonetheless, there really is no free will. Well, there's no free will. You have a will that makes you free, but that's another story. Nonetheless, right? Talk about, so we got his wife out the way, right? We can see his wife, right, in the chart.
Yeah.
And I'm sure someone will say, well, man, what happened when his wife got burned up? Can you see that in the chart? Yes, we can. But I'm not going to go there, right? Maybe we'll talk about that in some other context some other time. But I want to stick to the topic because you can see individuals in his life that reflect the chart. And so his children, right, are a reflection of the chart. Well, what did Malcolm primarily have, right, as far as children are concerned? I'm
Girls.
pretty sure it's girls, right?
Yeah.
Well, let's look to the fifth house to see the context and the what's going to come through the vehicle of children as children, as far as the fifth house is concerned, because the fifth house is, right, the house of children, right?
Yeah.
Well, what's in there? The moon, right? Showing another confluence, bearing that the man will have female children, especially primarily the first child and the second child. Why do I say the second child? Because the seventh house, right, is the third from the fifth. So the third house is your siblings, younger siblings. So counting from the fifth house is the first child, 5, 6, 7. The seventh house becomes the third from the fifth, therefore yielding the second child of the individual's life. And the seventh house is ruled by Mercury, therefore also conjunct the moon in the fifth house as well, showing another daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And then we want to count again. Let's say the next child, the next sibling would be the third from the seventh, which is the ninth. Well, then that particular planet is ruled, that particular house is ruled by Sun. And that particular planet is in the sixth house, conjunct Venus, again showing another child that's female. Right? And I could keep going. Right? Right? Not only that, let's see. Fifth from Jupiter. Jupiter is the Karaka of children, right? It's the significator of children. Fifth from Jupiter is what?
Yeah.
It's the moon, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So that is deep. And then you got to go.
Right. I mean, hey, look, the fifth from the moon, right? Because we always look at the context from the moon. Fifth from the moon is Leo, and the ruler of Leo's sun. The sun is also conjunct Venus, again showing the first daughter to be a girl. I mean, just it goes round and round, right? It's perfectly set. So this is just to show, this individual's life is written, right, in the stars. Literally, right? Now, let's get into some context, right, about what happened and karmically speaking, like what went down. So, right, the ninth lord in your chart is your guru, right? It's your teachers, your relationship with your teachers, your spiritual guides, right? Well, what's his ninth house?
Leo.
Right. And tell me, what rules Leo?
Sun.
And what house does Sun go to?
Sixth house.
Which is the house of what? Enemies.
Enemies.
So the guru becomes an enemy. Right?
Yeah.
Let's see if we can fact check this, right? So we said he's represented by the ascendant, and he's also represented as the Atma Karaka, as the ruler of the ascendant. Well, in the scheme of things, right, we want to know what a person's guru will look like in the sense of the Chara Karaka movement, because we already established that the ninth lord is in the sixth house of enemies, right?
Yeah.
And in fact, what was the reason why he fell out with his guru?
Getting information, and he's talking too much. He was saying too much. He was,
what was the purported reason? What he had a problem with Elijah for?
Well, he said that he was told not to say anything about the death of President Kennedy, and he did anyway in an interview.
Mm-hmm. And
Chickens
so that
come
caused
on the
him.
roost.
Mm-hmm. And then what happened?
He was put on silence. Mute.
And anything he would have found out about Elijah that might have been disconcerting.
Well, yeah, he found out, about the other wives or the other women, other children, and things like that. Yeah.
And what is conjunct the ninth lord?
Venus.
So the guru has a problem with women. Just saying. It's there.
Yeah.
I mean, people say, "Oh, brother, you did it." And look, I'm just telling you what's there. You can tell me what you want to tell me about your theory, right? But the ninth lord is in the sixth house in an enemy sign, conjunct the enemy lord, and the enemy lord is Venus.
Yeah.
Because Venus and Sun are enemies in the scheme of this system.
Yeah.
And so, not only that, Venus is combust, so it's burnt. So the guru is now burning, combusting, or literally, excuse my French, pissing women off. Someone ran their mouth. I'm just telling you what it says. How do you know? The second house from Venus, where the guru sits, is Mars. And Mars, the second house, is the mouthpiece. Rahu is in the third from Venus. Third from third from the Lord of the Guru, third from the Sun, which is the Lord of the Ninth, the Guru. So literally, it's also showing his spiritual teacher as well simultaneously. But the reason why they had a contention, of course, is the female thing. Of course, his speaking out and all those different things. But it's karmically speaking is what we're talking about here. And the way we find out the guru in the Chara Karaka system is the planet that has the third highest degree, which is called the Bhatri Karaka, and it represents the ninth and the third house interactions. So if you have, let's say, Jupiter as your Bhatri Karaka, you very well may have a very strong, good relationship with your guru itself, provided Jupiter is placed well. Right? But when Mars becomes your Bhatri Karaka and it opposes Jupiter as the Atma Karaka, now you have a contention, karmically speaking, between the guru and the individual himself. Because they're in opposition. So, right, not only that, showing further again, right, these different confluences to show this was a problem, right? It wasn't just there was some involvement or issue with his demise through this, right, in some way.
Yeah.
Right. Getting deeper, right, into it. So he's in the cool period up until the moon. He's in the moon period. In 1964, what dasha do we have?
Mars,
which is the Bhatri Karaka, right? Which is in opposition to Guru or Jupiter, and it's in opposition to his Lord himself, to the Lord, to he himself, meaning that it's in opposition. There was a fight at that point.
Yeah.
Right. So showing that from the moon period when he's all praised, remember, right? Fifth house is also a house of kingship. Right? Fifth house is a house of kingship too. Right? Being a prime minister, being advisor to the big man himself, that's the fifth house type stuff. Right?
Yeah. And it happened fast for him too. I mean, I know he kind of moved fast when he got out of prison.
Well,
he got
I
out
mean,
52. By 53, he was, already one of
moving,
the
man. Yeah, he's already a minister.
yeah.
But he was that before he got there in jail.
Mm-hmm.
But look what he was in jail in the Dasha period. He's in a son Dasha in jail.
Mm-hmm.
But Sun is in the 6th house. So he meets his guru in jail.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, wow. That's just right there. Right? Ninth Lord, 6th house. He's in the 6th house Dasha. Right? And 6th house is Sun and rules the 9th house. That just means you meet your guru in jail. But Sun also in the 6th house provides a lot of discipline. Right? Even though it's in Venus's sign, even though it's in Taurus conjunct Venus, right? It still is a lot of discipline, because even still it's in the enemy's position, it's still in a very good house. Right? Sun likes to be in the 6th house. Right? Any malefic likes to be in what's called a Upachaya house, right? Or a malefic house.
Yeah.
Right. So it does well there. And so since it does well, right, he shines from jail. Right? And then when he gets out of jail, literally when the moon dasha hits, it's just like a slingshot effect. It just like it was automatic. It wasn't even there was no brainer, as they say. Right?
Yeah.
So I mean, considering, right, that this all shows a great deal, of insight into this man's spiritual destiny by way of what we call karma. When he hits the Mars Dasha period, that's when it gets a little crazy. In 1964, if I'm correct, and again, this is not me I'm reading this based on the chart, not the actual life events, but I'm sure if you go check, right, 1964 is about the time, right, when things begin to fall apart, right, and so, in fact, I'll just check myself, right? And then we can say for sure, but nonetheless, these things are written.
Yeah, he around 63.
Mm-hmm. Which we call Dasha Sandhi, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Dasha Sandhi is when you're phasing out from one phase of life to the next. And it says, this is Wikipedia, y'all. I'm not trying to pull out the book and get the whole quote and everything, but you're more than welcome to do it yourself. But it says, departure from Nation of Islam. On March 8th, 1964, Malcolm X publicly announced his break from the Nation of Islam. Well, we go over to the destiny. In August of 1964 is when he began his Mars Dasha period. February 8th of 1964 is when the Moon-Sun Dasha process period began. And the next phase was Mars. Right? And Mars being in the 7th house, being in opposition, right, to Jupiter, which is the guru. Even though he himself is that, but remember, it makes sense because he himself becomes a guru, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So that's people. It's hard to read the same thing at the same time. No, it's not. You just have to kind of cut and know what you're looking at to know that you're reading something very similar in context to each other. So now we have a Mars period here, and its problems. Right. Mars is in an enemy sign, right? Mm-hmm. It's in Gemini, right? And not only that, right? When we want to know about an enemy in the sense of the Charakaraka system, right? We look to the planet that has the 6th highest degree, right? And so that becomes what is called the Nati Karaka, and that is the moon for his chart, right? So the moon being conjunct Mercury, or the Nati Karaka being conjunct Mercury rather, literally means that the individuals that were plotting his demise, right, were close individuals, or someone that he would have suspected but not necessarily understood or known why. Mercury is a planet of cunning, right? Especially when it's in Aries, right? It's a planet of cunning. It's not a nice planet when it's in Aries. Mercury takes on the energy and where he's placed, right? And so being in Aries, right? And if you look at it, he has what's called a Parvatana Yoga between the 5th and the 7th house, right?
Yeah.
That Parvatana Yoga increases the propensity and the strength of that planet. So actually Mars is acting like it's in Aries. Now we even have more of a problem with the Nati Karaka being conjunct Mercury, which is acting like Mars. So deeper associations with backstabbing, right? Someone setting him up in essence. Right. Now, getting into the more final, into some other moments where we can define things and cut the line, right? In February of February 2nd of 66, that's probably when the severing between he and Elijah got so prevalent that is when a major internal decision was for him to find a new spiritual path. Right around 65, 66. And why do I know? Because in 65, he's in a Mars-Rahu period, and Rahu's the rebellious one, right? And Mars, remember, is what we consider the Bhatri Karaka, or the significator in the Chara Karaka system of the guru or teacher.
Yeah.
Rahu is in the 8th house of transformation again. But now it's in what we call a 212 position between Mars and Rahu. And so that 212 is what we call a give and take position. So literally it's like a cyclotron, and the person kind of spins into a point where they have a realization and they let go of things and acquire new things.
Mm-hmm.
So in that period between the Mars Rahu and the Mars Jupiter period is when he more than likely found the Orthodox Islam and probably started to begin to practice that more frequently. Right. And then, right, we can talk about his exit, right? And then we'll tie it up from there. So he exits February 21st, 1967. Strange, it did happen near Elijah's birth. No, it's not Elijah's birthday. Near
65.
Was it 65?
Yeah.
I thought it was 67. Hold on. Yeah. No, 60. It's 67 when he dies, right?
I got February 21st, 65.
65. Let me double check. Yes, sir. It is 65. So hold on, let me go back here. Oh, then yeah, no. I'm sorry. I'm looking at 67. 65 it makes sense because Rahu's in the 8th house, and right at that period of time. So no, he found that particular he found it almost at the same time, actually. All of this happened simultaneously. Because in 64 is when he actually parted. So 65 was such wow, I mean, that's the exit zone. So you can see Rahu's in the 8th, right? And the 8th Lord, right, again, is the Nati Karaka, which is the planet of enemies. So now Rahu becomes empowered to take him out. Right? That Mars-Rahu period is empowered to take it. Literally it causes, remember, Rahu opens and closes portals, right, all day. So the funny thing though is that Saturn is in opposition to the moon, which is a Nadi Karaka. And Saturn represents government, just like the sun does.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be far tell to say that the power structure, the powers that be, right, also were in, I want to say collusion, but definitely working in tandem, or kind of like a seesaw effect, right, with one side of the enemies and then the other. Because it's not that they were necessarily working together, because they're not together, but they're working on either side of one another, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, in that Mars Rahu Dasha, and let me see what the actual sub Dasha is. Okay, so Mars Rahu, yeah. So Rahu is all over it. Yeah, and Rahu's in the 8th from the Atma Karaka. By far.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's Sambandha because Rahu's Lord Moon is in direct opposition to Saturn, and Saturn is the Lord of the second, which is K2, and the second house also is another way of understanding timing of death. So by far, yeah, I mean, you can see that Rahu period is what did it.
Well, and I mean, the Mars is in the 7th, and it has that Parvavatana with Mercury, 7th house.
Yeah, all day. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting. You can see, karma is right there, and then when you look at it from the transit position, it's kind of interesting as well, because right there in let's see, Rahu's in the 6th house, right, of enemies, right, sitting there with good old Ninth Lord. And so let's see, Mars is actually in the 10th house, right? Yeah, 6 houses away from the Nati Karaka. So showing also again, and then not only that, by transit, K2's in Scorpio, which also empowers that Dasha period to have some sudden effects, and it's in the 12th house.
Mm-hmm.
So all of those things, I mean, all of those things happen right in tandem. Yeah, the 6th Lord is 6 away from Mars. The Ascendant Lord is 6 away from Mars. So the physical body has some opposition to fight or struggle. So yeah, the date of death definitely showed, it was the exit zone. Yeah, quite interesting. But by far, an individual that showed exemplary discipline, moral uprightness, despite going through challenges, despite having an upbringing that was challenged in many regards, showing that he lived his life, to the fullest truth of what he would consider to be true. And that's what Jupiter gives you the power to do, right? Is to literally, stand on that truth, to live, to become what we call Ma'akaru, right? Or true of voice and true of deed. So, by far, he lived his life to the exact letter of his destiny, by far, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Indeed, man. Yeah, it's deep. You look at it.
Yeah.
All the days. Yeah.
Yeah. To have all of that happen within that small Mars Dasha window.
Mm-hmm.
Just that little window. Boom. You find all kind of different things out, your guru and all these different, think about the lesson that comes with that Atma Karaka at the 29th degree, right, of Sag. Right. That's how that looks, right? And not only that, just sidebar, right? Jupiter's in Uttara Ashada. Uttara Ashada is no joke. Like, Uttara Ashada is literally one of the most powerful nakshatras in the zodiac. They will finish it, or they will live their life to the letter of their law, meaning they will live their creed out. And Jupiter is there. So, this man if you want to see Jesus in modern times, I wouldn't think you could get a better example. You know what I mean? Because he lived it to the point where he would die for it.
Mm-hmm.
No fear. No fear. On that edge, on that cusp, on that precipice of saying, you know what? I'm here to live it out. That's what it looks like.
Yeah, man. You listen to this show and then either watch the movie or watch that documentary Who Shot Malcolm X. You'll see, if you watch that, you'll see it just unfold. And Ra hadn't even you hadn't even seen it, right?
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, so this is goes to show you that the charts are real. Without a
destiny is very real. As people say, I don't believe in that destiny stuff. Well, it believes in you. Because right, it has already chosen paths for you beyond your control. Right? So, it's just when you accept limitations and destiny, you gain power. And that really is a power to face death. We take it for, it's a joke and it's movie stuff to us, but for this man, that moment came and it was nothing else but to walk through the gate of death with eyes wide open. That's a guru. See, that's our guru stuff over here in the West. Like, they got the guru stuff on the East. We got some guru stuff here. That's our guru stuff here. And it's a little messy because we got a little messy stuff going on. But nonetheless, that's a guru. Right?
Yeah.
He walked his talk, right? Lived his truth and died his truth. Right? Bar none, right? Malcolm, I'm sure will reincarnate at a level where he's going to pick up from where he leaves off. And I say reincarnate because not all of us reincarnate. Some of us are reborn. Mm-hmm. Most of us are, in fact. Maybe we'll have a show about that one day, about the difference between being reborn and reincarnated. When Amawit, right, has the ability to recycle you, right? But for all those that know the Kemetic tradition, you know what I'm talking about. Nonetheless, we'll leave it off there. Please comment. Please, if you have any questions or anything like that, shoot a shot or send a kite. Let us know, right? We definitely will address it here. Come up next show.
Absolutely. Yeah, and there's some things, just for time's sake, we left off and stuff like that, because I know people are going to ask, you see, the issues with the government and stuff like that in this chart.
Yeah, sun is in the 6th house. It's right there.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah. Indeed. But, as always, this episode was brought to you by Push It Forward Media Group and Caliprucia Astrology and our good patrons over on Patreon. Again, thank you all for the support. Hit us up. You got ask questions and stuff like that. Let us know. What you different things that you need, any ideas and stuff like that. And we definitely are open and always trying to, see where we can, look out when we can, and you can make sure you follow us. Follow us on Cosmic Convo on Instagram. CosmicConvo on Instagram. And hit up Brother Ra. I know a lot of people been hitting him up. I say you want to catch him now or whatnot because he's in reading mode. You know what I'm saying, or whatnot. So this would be a good time, and stuff like that. And it's it's important to understand what's going on so you can kind of structure your life a certain way. Know when it's the right time to make this move or that move, or what I mean. Just have a better understanding of whatever situation you're in and stuff like that. It's priceless.
No doubt, it'll stay with you for a lifetime. Stays with you for a lifetime.
Absolutely, man. We need to I'm gonna think about this. Maybe we need to look into this, man. Create like a chart. Some kind of like handcrafted or some kind of something of charts. You know what I mean? Almost make like a rug or something like that.
It's a mandala. Charts are mandalas. Yeah. They're mandalas. Yeah, this is your mandala. This becomes your mandala. So they see the great guru, the great Tibetan yogis, right? And they have the sand, and they're making these big mandalas, right? Well, they make mandalas. They literally, there's a Tibetan astrology that uses mandalas like that. Like the chart becomes a mandala, and you can change your destiny by changing the chart as a mandala. Pretty deep stuff. But yeah, definitely we should look into that. That would be something to consider, to have it where it becomes more like I don't say a plaque, but something where it really has some value to it, right?
Absolutely,
no doubt.
Indeed. Well, as always, thank you all for tuning in. We'll be back next week with another show. Indeed. And I know it's kind of crazy out there, so everybody definitely stay safe. Keep your eyes open and stuff like that. Keep tuning in to us because again, we're looking at the stars and we're seeing, what kind of things are coming up. So we'll definitely keep everybody in the loop on that. So you can be ready. And we're out. Peace.
Peace.